The Sabres offense seems to be missing. More on that on the Sabres Edge podcast. All right, welcome back to the Sabres Edge podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Saucymitz, and I'm here with my co-host, Top Shelf Timmy Corks. How have you been, Timmy?
I mean, it's kind of been a rough weekend when it comes to Buffalo sports so far, but, focusing on the Sabres. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've been kind of down on the whole entire team right now, and we'll get into that into the show, but how's your weekend been?
It's been all right. I had the fortune of being able to go to one of the Sabres games. That's why we're recording here on a Wednesday. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't a great game. But again, we'll get into that. But other than that, my weekend's been pretty good.
Awesome. How was I know that the Sabres have a good reputation for a lot of the celebrations. How did everything go with Oki's 1000th?
Yeah, I thought that the presentation was nice. They had a lot of current and former teammates giving and his family giving nice speeches. They brought out a big silver sword and they gave fans in attendance a little replica. So I actually have one here. It comes in a nice little case. It says
Nice.
a FOSO on it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice. It's probably going to be in the background for future shows, but yeah.
You'll have to have something zoomed in on it too, so people can see it.
Yeah, I'll need to every show be sure to
lean over to let
it
show.
Yeah, so that people can see that it's still there.
Do they still get? Is it the golden stick that the league gives to the player too, or is it just
the league gave some sort of gemstone? I'm not entirely sure what it was, but it was some sort of gemstone to commemorate the 1,000 games.
Okay.
But all in all, it was a nice presentation. I thought that was lovely, much more lovely than the on ice product.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, so we're gonna change up the format a little bit. We are gonna kind of go through just kind of box scores of the 3 games that were in the previous week more kind of quickly, and then sum up how the Sabres played more broadly across the 3 games after we've already gone through the box scores. So the first game, we had Wild versus Sabres, and that was a 3-2 game, and the Sabres goal scorers were JJ Peterka, Jeff Skinner, and Henry Yokiharu, with assists going to Peterka, Skinner, Power, and Thompson. The next game was against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we did not have a goal scorer that game as the Penguins beat us 4-0. And then after that, we had the Boston Bruins, and that game was 5-2, and Victor Olofsson had 2 goals in garbage time, with assists going to Dylan Cousins, Casey Middlestat, JJ Peterka, and Owen Power. And let me just say, Kyle Okposo played well enough to have deserved a point during that game.
Yeah,
it's really, really kind of disheartening that he didn't get one because he played fantastic. For all of the crap that I've probably given him in the last 2 weeks, it was awesome to see Kyle play as well as he did. But, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see a player finally play inspired for this team.
Right.
This is something that should be more consistent that's going on with this team as well. I don't know. Where are the Sabres? Where has the team of 2022, 2023 gone? Because I don't even know what this team is. I mean, yeah, they have defense, but where the hell is the offense right now?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the question, right? That's what we start off with our show. That's the title of our show. What has happened to the offense? So in the first game of the week, we saw Minnesota, and we got 3 goals in that game, which is all right, but it's not anything spectacular. We definitely we were held in that game by the play of Devin Levi, who had a 943 save percentage. By the way, he came out that game and really showed what Sabres fans were excited about, right? That was the Devin Levi that we saw last year and that we had high hopes for. And he's been inconsistent, but we'll get to that. But he was the reason that we were kept in that game. Our scoring was not really, it wasn't a high flying offense that took us into that game. And then in the next game, we see the Penguins, and that was just kind of embarrassing, honestly. We had some opportunities to score. I think it was JJ had a really good shot, but nothing ends up in the net, and so we get shut out again. And then in the most recent game, the Boston Bruins have played stout defense. We've talked about that. They have been carried by goaltending and David Pastrnak. Pastrnak gets on the board early. Their goaltending plays really well. And it's just it just spells disaster for the Sabres. We go down 5-0. And at that point, whatever, good job, Olofsson. You got your 2 goals, but it didn't matter. Those were not important goals. If it helps him get going, if maybe Olofsson can start scoring and pick up the pace, that could be helpful for us. But I'm not looking at Olofsson as the solution now that he's got 2 goals. So, in your opinion, what are you looking at? What are you looking at as solutions?
I mean, I don't even know what there is to look at right now. I mean, the biggest news right now for the Sabres is Thompson. I mean, Thompson was your most productive player last season. How he's been this season, I mean, he's had some good games. He's had some games where, he's probably been showing the most effort, but now he's gone. I think Granato said it's a week's type of situation thing, and he said a week to more of a month he's going to be gone for. And you have him gone. So he's going to be gone for a month. Tuck is injured right now. He's supposed to be back Friday, but he's not having a great start to the season. I mean, Jeff Skinner's been playing pretty well, but he's not the type of player that's going to carry the team on his back. Dylan Cousins is back, and he's been down this season too. So I mean, the most consistent offense that we kind of had is Peterka's heating up, Middlestad's kind of more of he's not going to be getting you goals, but he'll be helping setting up players. And you had Skinner. And besides that, look at the lines that we brought out last week or in the last game. I mean, you had 6 fourth-liners playing in that game. You had Gergensons, you had Jost, you had Okposo, you had Rusek, you had Krebs played in the last game. And I would say even Olofsson. I mean, he's a goal scorer, but he's a 3rd or 4th liner. I can't tell you what the solution for this team is right now, just because I don't know what's going. I mean, there's a log jam going on with this team right now where you're calling up guys like a Rusek, which I mean, he's a good player, but why is he getting called up when you don't have offense right now?
Right.
He's not going to get anything going for this team at all. You don't need another 4th liner. Yeah, their 4th line has been okay, but you don't need him up there. The problem is right now is you don't have offense. Your team isn't producing offense. And, I think a lot of criticism going with Granato is he keeps on juggling up the lines that maybe there's not much chemistry, which I don't know if I fully believe in that. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I said, you kind of have to break up the first line of Skinner, Tuck, and Thompson to kind of get the rest of the team going. But right now, I mean, there is nobody going. So I don't know what the solution is. And I know there's some rumors coming out there about Kane, but then you also have Kulik and you have Rosen playing pretty well down in the AHL. So I guess those are some of the options right now. Do you have any solutions yourself, Sam?
Yeah, I think I've got some ideas that I'd like to see, but before that, even just some more of the problems that have cropped up over the last few weeks, right? So you said, we've got Casey Middlestat. He's been great at 5-on-5 production. We have Jeff Skinner. He's really he's been a steady point producer. Normally in his career, he's been like very hot and cold. Like he's been pretty steady for us this season. And so that's an improvement that you see, right? And then JJ Paterka, he makes a huge step this season, and like he's pacing for almost 40 goals. Like that is these improvements that you see. And then because we see those improvements, you'd like to be able to see, the rest of the team kind of keep up their production, and that hasn't happened. Well, part of that is we talked about Alex Tuch last podcast and the potential that he was hurt. Well, as it turns out, we're seeing him miss games with injury, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he's never been able to find his way into a groove, and that could be part of it. And because he hasn't found his way into a groove, Thompson's been having his lines juggled. I don't remember who he was playing with to start the season. It was maybe Benson and Greenway.
Thompson?
Yeah.
I think they started off with the lines where it was Skinner, Tuch, Thompson in the first line. The second line was Paterka, Cousins, and Olofsson. And the third line was Middlestat, Benson, and Greenway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Thompson has had his lines juggled a lot, and he's been playing with Dylan Cousins, who something is wrong with. You need, if you're like the sports psychologist on that team, you need to focus on Dylan Cousins and figure out what is wrong with him, because we know he can play well. We know he can play better than what he's currently doing. And he did that as a 20-year-old. Like, that's not his ceiling.
Yeah.
We're not looking at that last year and saying that was his ceiling. It might have been a little above what you would have expected from him that year, but that's not his ceiling. And we've seen him play better, and we know he can. Is his defense bad? Yes. Has it been bad last year? Yes. That's not what I'm looking at. If he can get to the same point production, that's fine. But they need to figure him out. He's one of the problems right now. Get him back on track. Another person that is worth looking at right now is Jordan Greenway. Mm-hmm. He started off the year really hot, and people were like, this is the Greenway that, us included, we sung his praises at the start of the start of the year. But this is the Greenway that like we knew or that like Don knew was going to happen. But he's still putting up points occasionally, more so than he was last year. But I think that we probably need to accept the fact that he's probably a third or fourth line player who had a good start to the season. And that's better than what I expected going into the season, because he's playing really good defense, and he bolsters the penalty kill the way that you'd want Greenway to when you signed him. He is the player that for years we had talked about. We need a player to solidify our penalty kill. He's here. So I don't think that it's a problem that he's here, but now that he's like not overperforming the way that he was, some of the cracks that are actually a part of the lineup, like having 6 fourth liners, are showing up. And that's, it's going to be a problem. You can even have Greenway on like a second line if he's playing with more offensively gifted people like Middlestat and Paterka, or Middlestat and Benson, Skinner, right? So you like are covering, you are having him help out where there's deficiencies in the lineup, right? You're having him cover on defense, and that's perfectly fine. But I've seen a few plays in the last few games where the puck hits a stick in the offensive zone, and honestly, he's kind of killing plays, or the puck gets across to him, and he's not getting the tap-in goal. And that's what we probably should be expecting from this guy. I'd love to see him produce at a like 80-point pace, but that's realistically not him. And if we can get like 30 points from him this year, he plays well enough on defense where he's a good like hockey player to have around. But he has kind of regressed to the mean, right? And we're seeing more of what we should expect throughout the year. And as a result of that, our offensive problems that we're seeing with Cousins and the injury to Alex Tuch and maybe having too many fourth liners on this team are starting to emerge from those cracks.
Yeah. I mean, water finds its level, and Greenway, I think, is going back to what he was expected to be as an NHL player. I mean, Donnie's magic can only work so much, and it's not going to work for every player. I mean, is he playing it better than he was for the Wild? I would assume so. I'm not trying to kick him off the team. Like you said, I mean, he's going to be playing high minutes, especially with the penalty kill aspect that he has on the team. So I'm grateful for that. But is he going to be a first line, second line guy? I just don't think so. I mean, but the problem is right now is they don't have many of those guys. He's kind of being forced in those positions as well. But the other part too, and I know we're going to get into it, is just there's really no structure to their offense at all. And I kind of leaned into this last podcast where they're not getting set up in the offensive zone. I mean, it's a lot of transition offense where someone just takes the puck in, throws it at the net. No one's there for the rebound, and the other team comes back and skates back with the puck. And you see these other teams do that where they're keeping the puck in the zone. And you can see our team getting tired because they can't get the puck out. And that ends up getting goals because there's defensive deficiencies at that point. But the Sabres don't do that. And they have the skill and they have the youth to do that. They have the guys that you can put in front of the net to kind of get those garbage goals. And you have the guys that can stand at the circles to get that goal. And this is reflecting not only on 5-on-5, but it's also reflecting in the penalty kill where they just don't know how to maintain the puck in the zone.
You mean this is just the power
basics.
play?
Oh, power play. Yeah, sorry. Wires are getting crossed a little bit here. But it's becoming frustrating at this point. And this isn't just a 1-year thing. It's been a couple of years at this point. And it's just, this is basic stuff, man. Like you learn this stuff in pee-wee hockey and bantam hockey. Like you learn how to play in the offensive zone and cycle the puck, and they are not cycling the puck. And when they cycle the puck, it looks terrible, and they're not making smart decisions. I think the one thing that to kind of go back on Dylan Cousins, what the hell is going on with these no-look passes that aren't going to anybody, and they're just getting turned over to the other team? Like, what is going on in his head? Is there a coach that's going to go in there and tell him, you have to stop freaking doing this? Stop doing it, or you're getting benched, or you're getting put up in the freaking press box. But the problem is, you have this situation right now is you have a log jam. You don't have many talented players at this point where you really can't put him up there because then you're basically just succeeding to like, we're going to lose this game. And this is where the part where I want to come in and talk about Olsen. And this guy just, if you're not going to play this guy, get rid of him. I don't care anymore.
Right.
He shouldn't be on this team anymore. He shouldn't be on a roster spot. That's great. He had his 2 goals. But if you don't trust him anymore to play consistently in this game, get him gone. I don't care if it's for a 7th round pick or it's for a bag of pucks. Gone. We had enough of this experiment. Everyone knows he's leaving. You know he's leaving. I know he's leaving. Your mom knows he's leaving. Everyone knows he's leaving. Get rid of him at this point. We're done. The experiment's over. I know his contract sucks, but you know what? You're just going to have to eat it. Kevin Adams, at some point, you're going to have to start eating things, whether it's taking on a bad trade or giving up some prospects. You can't be afraid to do these things anymore. I know right now, this is kind of like a fringe playoff team. A lot of people right now are just giving up and saying this isn't a playoff team, maybe next year. But there has to become a point where you have to start making moves because right now you have a logjam of potentially too much. Like I'm saying, it's potentially too much talent. And what are you going to do with all these guys? And it's kind of catching up to you right now.
Right. On your point about the transition game, just like kind of a little bit of a step back there.
Yeah.
The transition game was how we got most of our offense last year. Most of the goals that we scored last year came off the transition. We have never, even when we were scoring at a top 10 pace in the league, like we weren't doing it as a like possession and cycle team. I think part of the issue is we've done a good job this year trying to commit to defense. It's reflected in like Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has like pretty good numbers, and I don't think he's necessarily playing that much better. Like when he came in relief for Levi, there were so many times where I'm like, man, this is looking tough for you, Uk. Like you're like kind of swimming out there. And the defense is out there blocking shots, getting in lanes, and they're doing a good job in our own zone. Obviously, like the end result is we're spending too much time in our own zone. But I think part of the like issue is just a system mismatch. If we're going to commit harder to defense, the transition game is not going to be as strong. If you're going to put people like deeper in your zone to get like more effort into like collecting pucks and blocking shots, you're not going to have Jeff Skinner always, hanging out by the line, ready to be sprung for a pass.
Yeah.
And that hurts our transition game. If that's the case, like now the next logical step is you need to make your game more about cycling, because we're not going to do transition if you're also going to commit this hard to defending and blocking shots. Another thing also is that our transition game seems to be getting stunted more in our own zone than it ever had before. And I don't know what the reason is that we can't make a breakout pass for the life of us. It seems like only Rasmus Dahlin is capable of doing so right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, Ryan Johnson more so. But if the puck lands on Clifton or Eric Johnson's stick, it's getting wrapped around the boards, and our player's not there first.
Nope.
And even if they are, our back is facing the outlet, we're just looking back in the zone, and then it just goes back deep to the defenseman again, who will repeat the cycle. This happens way too many times in a game. We need to change the structure of how we break out of our own zone before we can even start talking about our offense, because we're just getting stuck, and our transition offense is not working because of that as well. But then also, yes, if you're going to do harder on your defensive zone, you need to be able to spend reasonable time in the offensive zone, and not just hope that all of your goals are going to come off of breakouts.
Yeah. Do you think this is a combination of teams, one, knowing what the Sabres were last year? They figured out the system and they're going to start playing harder defense against the team. Because like I said, last podcast, a lot of these teams are just, blocking them in the neutral zone. They're not even letting them in. And maybe it's, they'll dump it in. But like you said, this team, surprisingly for how young it is not a very fast team. They don't have any speedsters out there to dump and chase a puck, to kind of, get in the corner and then hope the rest of your team gets in there so you can set up an offensive zone play. But I think the other, like you said, I feel like other teams are now starting to scheme for the Sabres just because they know that the talent that's on there. And two, last year, let's be honest, if I was like the Boston Bruins or any of these other better teams, I would just look over the Sabres and be like, all right, this is going to be a nice little warm-up game. We don't have to focus, we don't have to scheme for this team type of thing. Right. We're going to throw in our backup goaltender. What do you think?
Well, for the Boston Bruins, both their goaltenders are starting goaltenders. So that's, but we see it in the Philadelphia game specifically. We couldn't crack their defensive line. We would bring it up to the line, they'd stuff the line, and we'd either have to just choke it up because we weren't breaking through four people, or dump and chase, which we are not renowned for. We do have three very fast people in Zemgus Girgensons, who's probably the best at dump and chase, but he's not playing on a line that is conducive to offense. We have Alex Tuck, who I've thought has looked very off this whole year. And so maybe that's part of the reason why he's not really getting in those gritty areas. And we have JJ Peterka, who has the body of a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And while he's incredibly fast, when he gets into those gritty areas, he's going to lose the puck. He might get there first, but unless he has enough time to actually do something upon getting there first, he's just going to get squished. And so, the teams that are coming in against us now probably have an idea of the fact that if we can't carry it in over the line with possession, and we were really good at that last year.
Yeah.
If we can't do that, we don't have offense, because we're not going to be able to cycle it well. We're not going to be able to dump and chase. And if we do dump and chase, it's Zemgus Girgensson, and he is going to pass it to Kyle Okposo and Tyson Yost or Peyton Krebs. And what are they going to do with it? So yeah. And as Samuel Violante says, there's just no physical play aside from that fourth line who aren't going to get you a goal. Our offensive forechecking is just kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And it is, like Sam also said, is this a coaching thing? I think it is a coaching thing, but it's also almost like a player thing too, where they have to. I feel like this team is still trying to learn how to adapt their game to the NHL, where you have to play physical. This is not juniors. This is not college hockey. I mean, the AHL, that's where you develop and learn how to play physical. Many of these players, majority of these players really didn't play that much in the AHL, I think. So, I
I
mean,
think all of them got at least some AHL time,
yeah.
including even like Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson. Well, yeah, Thompson was in there for a few times. I mean, I just obviously, coaching could be a hot topic right now. I don't believe it's right. You're not ready to push any buttons there.
Right.
I mean, this is the type of thing. This is going to be a moment for Granato to show what he can do. I mean, what are you going to get these guys to change their culture, especially now that you're missing your biggest players? I mean, they have an away trip going on. And I think the one thing that I've noticed right now is you see the Boston Bruins, they start off with a Western trip, and now they're one of the best teams in the league. And the Penguins came back off a Western trip, and they're playing pretty well. Maybe the Sabres just need a Western trip where they face all these bad teams, and maybe they gain their confidence from there. Obviously, they're not taking a Western trip right now. They're actually playing it's a pretty tough schedule, right? They play the Washington Capitals, who are pretty they're actually playing pretty good right now. I forgot is Detroit another team too? Detroit's kind of still up there.
I'm sorry. Who are you talking about? Who's facing them?
Sabres on their I think they have 3 road games, right?
Their road trip is the Jets, the Blackhawks, the Capitals, and then back home against the Penguins.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a couple good teams that you could beat up on, but you can't really say that about the Sabres right now. And then, I agree with Sam right here. I'm tired of them waiting to learn how to win, and I completely agree. It's been way too long, and like I was saying earlier, the Sabres are going to this is the next progression where you have to make moves to make that next step, whether it be like a big trade or just getting rid of players on your team. I mean, I'm really right now. One of the players I've been just focusing on is just Olofsson. Is just get him off the team. I mean, he's just not part of the culture anymore. He doesn't play defense. I mean, he tried to show it a little bit, but he's benched half the time, so he's taking up his spot up in the press box, and there's no plus to his game at all. He doesn't generate his own offense. Yes, he has a good shot, but he needs to get set up by somebody else. He doesn't help anybody else. He doesn't generate other players' offense. What is the point of having him on this team? At this point, like I said, get rid of him. I don't know what your feelings are like.
I think especially, and this, I will talk more about coaching, but I think especially with the power play not clicking right now, Olofsson is just dead weight.
Yeah.
He gets the 2 goals in the last game. Great, good for him. Get the monkey off the back. But those aren't important goals. That game was over.
Yeah.
It was 5-0 in the third period, 10 minutes left. Cool. Yeah. I hope that it again, if it can spring more offense for you, awesome. If we can trade you even before then, better. I don't necessarily want to see him on the team anymore. And I think that, again, a big part of it is he is a power play specialist. We have such good power play personnel that he doesn't see first unit time.
Yeah.
And again, he's terrible at defense.
I mean,
now, the power play, I think, is its own issue. And I'll get into coaching a little bit there, because also I think for the coaching, I would just like to point out, the one thing that really makes me question the coaching is anything set play related. So power play, penalty kill, specific breakouts, like we were talking about earlier. They can't break a puck out of the zone. I encourage anyone who's watching a game, every time we retrieve a puck in the defensive zone, watch what they do. Just pay close attention to where the passes are going. When it's not Rasmus Dahlin who has the puck on his stick, watch what they're doing. It's either a flip out of the zone, which is almost always retrieved by the other person or the other team, or it's just a soft pass up the wall to a player whose back is turned to the ice, and it will almost 80% of the time end back up in the corner where it came from. It's terrible. So watch that, but power play, and that's a big topic right now because we cannot seem to get a power play goal. I thought the power play has looked okay these last few games without having scored anything. They do struggle a bit with the cycling, and like it feels like we can't win a face-off, so it does always start with us having to break the line, like you talked about, like people they're good at packing the line against us, and then we cannot forecheck for it. So like we always do the dumb drop pass, and other teams do that too. So it's probably just something that people have found out is effective. I think it's the idea is that you get the defending team to be like kind of flat on their line, and then you bust through them. That's the idea. Whatever we're doing with that isn't working, right? So that's kind of the start of it. And those are all set plays, right? The drop pass to like breaking in, set play. That's not working for us. The like actual power play itself, like that is kind of like a set system. You have Rasmus Dahlin at the top and your two shooters on the side. I don't know why. Like, I don't think that Jeff Skinner is a power play player. He's bad at retaining the puck. So if it ever gets along the boards and he has it, he seems to cough it up every time. So that's maybe a personnel choice that I don't necessarily agree with. But he can shoot. So maybe he probably wins more battles than Olofsson. But
yeah. That's like an NHL thing. Like when it's like NHL sports where you're just like, or EA Sports NHL where you just throw your best players on the power.
Yeah, you just put the best.
It doesn't matter about anything.
You don't worry about what the personnel is actually doing. You just put the best players on the power play. But yeah, I think again, like that's like the poor power play. It just seems like the other teams have figured out how to defend us so well on the power play. Thompson has become a non-threat on that side. Maybe not having him in the power play will get us to actually think about what we're doing and will help us like build some chemistry on the power play that doesn't just revolve around, hey, throw it over to Tage Thompson, and like make us think about how we conduct, how we pass, how we use the middle of the ice. We don't use the middle of the ice. It goes Dahlin, then like Thompson to Dahlin to the other side to Dahlin to the other side to Dahlin, sometimes through the middle. We, in the last game, I think we started using the middle of the ice. We started using Casey Middlestat, I think was in that bumper spot, and he created some good opportunities. The puck goes to the middle of the ice, and both of the defenders who are like high, both the forwards, have to kind of converge to the middle of the ice. Now you actually have space for Thompson on the outside and whoever the other person is, and there's a shooting lane all of a sudden. We weren't doing that for 13 games. We were not using that bumper spot. There was a player who was standing there. He tipped it in once. We got a goal through that method, but that was not working for us. So that is a coaching thing, in my opinion. Someone needs to look at the power play and say, this isn't working. And Sam points out, like, it's a major part of how we were winning games last year, and it's not working right now. You need to address that as a coach. You need to figure out what you can do to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, every part of it's not working. We can't break it into the zone, and from there, we can't get defenders to move well enough. They're just kind of sitting in their box, and then beyond that, like we're just not shooting in the net, right? We're not getting those grade A chances. Every part of it is feeling dysfunctional, and I think that's coaching because we have the personnel. Exactly. Tage Thompson has proven he can score on the power play. Rasmus Dahlin has vision as good as any other point man on a power play. You have these people. Alex Tuck behind the net or in front of the net, he's a strong physical body. I don't necessarily agree. I think that Casey Middlestat should be in that bumper spot. I don't necessarily agree with Skinner. Maybe Olofsson goes there if he's still around. Give him the opportunity to do what he's good at and be a power play one specialist. But whatever it is now, it's not working, and I don't necessarily think it's the personnel. So this one, I'm putting on coaches. They need to figure it out. They need to do anything.
Yeah.
Try something because it's not working and it hasn't been.
No, of course. I mean, it's just part of the thing too is the guy that you want to have against or across from Thompson too on the power play. You want that guy to be able to maintain the puck possession, which is, like you said, Skinner doesn't do that. Olofsson doesn't do that. And I think the one player that's actually good at possessing the puck right now is Casey Middlestat. But you
Right.
don't really have anybody else besides that on the team.
And I would want him in the bumper spot. Like he
Yeah.
has the vision. I think the person on the outside needs to also be a shooter, right? So
Yeah.
like I'm looking at Jeff Skinner, who I again don't necessarily all the shooters that we have are not great at possession. Thompson's
Nope.
pretty good at it, but
Yeah.
you got for the remainder, you got Jeff Skinner, Jack Quinn. I'm looking at you, Jack. Come back soon. Get healthy. JJ Paterka, he's proven that he can shoot it, and Victor Olofsson.
Yeah.
It's not a very strong physical lineup that I've just pointed out, but some of those people can at least protect the puck. Jack showed he could do it last year. JJ can do it at times. He is a smaller dude. He'll grow into that. I don't really worry about him in that regard this year. He'll grow into that, I think. But yeah. I think Victor's kind of lost his chance to prove that that's something he'll grow into. Jeff Skinner definitely passed his time to prove that that's something he'll grow into his game. But yeah, like it is a tough decision as to who you put there. I'd like to see them switch it from Skinner, just for the variety.
Yeah. Mentioning Quinn, I think a lot of people are waiting on Quinn right now. He came back from a major injury. I mean, your Achilles is not. I mean, Aaron Rodgers for the NFL is trying to come back early. This is a major injury. I don't want him to rush this. And I think when he does come back, he's going to have some AHL time. I mean, he might be a month or 2 months down the AHL. So at that point, he's going to be coming back in March and May. So to kind of put all your weight on Quinn right now, I'm not going to put my chips on him. I mean, I'm sorry, not this year. It's not going to happen.
Listen, I'm not I don't think he's going to save us, but I think he's an improvement over what we've got. I think he was slated to come back roughly end of November or early December. I'm not sure how much time you need to give him the AHL, 1-2 weeks maybe. So let's say he's back by New Year.
Have we gotten any updates on him at all though?
No, I do not believe
I haven't seen anything. Yeah.
I do not believe that's the case.
So that's the only thing I'm worried about is that you don't hear anything about him. There haven't been any updates. I guess people haven't really been asking updates about him, but how long is this conditioning stint going to take? I mean, getting ready, built up for the season, then getting into hockey shape, and then actually getting into the NHL. Those are three major steps. I mean, there's one person that rumors have been going around about who's actually pretty good in the power play, and he is that bumper type of guy, and he can maintain possession. He's a veteran guy. I know we've talked about him at the beginning of our shows. Right. I know you're not the biggest fan character-wise of the guy, but at this point, I mean, he's going to be – we're talking about Patrick Kane here.
Yeah. In case that wasn't clear, it is Patrick Kane. That's the rumors going on right now. They're kind of rampant. So if you follow the team, it's kind of a hard rumor to avoid.
Exactly. And I mean, I think he's going to be 34 years old coming up in the end of November. So he's not going to be the Patrick Kane that you saw during the Blackhawks Cup runs. I mean, I've listened to other podcasts with people with better connections than I do, hearing that the character of Patrick Kane from his early days to now has changed, where he is more in I would say the grooming or supporting type position for more of these younger players. So that's a good thing to hear. But I think this team on the offense too needs a veteran presence type of guy that can kind of steady the ship, who's been there. Okposo hasn't been anywhere. I don't think he made the playoffs once.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean Gergensen's he's the next veteran guy. He hasn't really done anything. The most veteran player with the most experience is Eric Johnson, and I mean he's a defenseman. And his plays have been kind of falling off too. So
I think Eric Johnson serves as a third pair defender. Yeah, I think he serves his purpose.
Yeah,
I don't have anything spectacular to say about him, but I do think he is that veteran guy you bring in to shore up the defense. But
you need that type of guy on the offense right now, and they just don't have that. And maybe Patrick Kane can be that guy. Now, the rumors are that he's looking for a 2-year deal,
Right.
which that is concerning just because, one, the history of the type of surgery that he had doesn't really have a good outcome of players playing well afterwards. Backstrom was the latest guy that did that for the Capitals, and he basically stepped away from the game just because he wasn't feeling like he's playing at a high level. There's been other players too, but I mean, at this point, I know Sam said, that make a trade.
Right.
I don't know how many teams are trading right now. Or willing to trade. I mean, at this
Unless
point,
you're offering something spectacular.
Exactly. So they're going to have to give up a lot, which, like I said, you have to be willing to do. But then you also have to realize this player is going to be a fit to your scheme. Right. And he's willing to commit to the team, too, because right now Buffalo isn't really looking like a great destination. And maybe Patrick Kane helps that. Here's this veteran guy who's already won his cups, and he's kind of, he's still a big dog around the league, maybe not as big as he was, right. But maybe he can bring some credibility to the team. He's not going to he's not going to turn this whole ship around, but, maybe he can be more of a steady presence, and maybe he can tell Granato or Matt Ellis, like, you're doing things freaking wrong here, man.
Right.
Like, what is going on here? Your power play is a mess. Let me help set this up. Because when he plays, well, at least when he played in Chicago, he was a power play specialist, top line guy, can carry the puck like nobody else in the offensive zone. So maybe he can do that, and maybe he can instill some confidence into these younger players too. I don't know. What are you thinking of Patrick Kane?
I'm conflicted. So we talked about 2 years. Yeah. That's the rumor I keep hearing as well. 2 years. You could, at this point, with the injuries that we've sustained and the injuries that you probably see more throughout the year, I could probably be convinced that a 1-year low-dollar contract isn't the worst thing in the world for Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
However, and this is a big however, because my mind would not be at ease putting Patrick Kane on this team, because last year, before he was injured, his production kind of hit a wall. He saw his points drop by like 40, like almost 30, 35. He saw his points drop by like 35. And now he's had this surgery, which again, you said like hasn't looked great. We saw Backstrom, and when he returns to play, he will be 35. That 35. Is not a great combination. We talked about Quinn and how his surgery will probably have him taking time to like get up to game speed. Patrick Kane's probably going to have to take time to get up to game speed as well. Yep. I don't think we can expect the 35-year-old coming off major surgery to like just look great as soon as he steps onto the ice. Now, I do think that there's some validity to saying like, hey, you bring him in, you have now an offensive guy who's won cups, who's like seen the best offenses in the league. Maybe he can have a word with Don. Don, I think, has worked with Patrick Kane before because Don was in Chicago. So maybe they have like good rapport with each other, and they can like, and Patrick Kane can say, hey, look, this is like maybe what would be more effective. This is how you should be structuring things. And maybe our offense would get better as a result. I don't think he's necessarily a good personality to have in the locker room beyond that. So literally, I think that his only utility at this point, because I don't think it's as a point getter, not in his current state, not in like just he again. I think he fell off a cliff production wise, and he's only getting older, and he's coming back from surgery. So I don't think that his role on this team would be as a point getter, and I don't think that he'd be a great locker room presence. The one thing that I will give you is that he might want to bring a spark in the fact that like, holy cow, it's Patrick Kane, like. He might be able to elevate the play of those around him.
Yeah.
And he might be able to help Don Granato to change some systems to be more effective. So in those regards, I could be convinced that maybe Patrick Kane on a 1-year contract might be all right. You get rid of Olofsson. You have players coming back from injury. There's space right now. We talked about we were icing 6 fourth liners. Like as it stands right now, there's definitely space to bring on another higher end player.
Yeah.
You would be betting and hoping that he still has that higher end play. If it's a 2-year contract, please, for the love of God, I do not want to see it. Keep it away from our team. If it's a 2-year contract, and I saw like rumors is that like over $3 million, it's a 2-year contract for over $3 million. I would be so upset with the team. I would not be happy with that decision-making process. I get it. He is a superstar, an ex-superstar, but at this point in his career, I can't justify giving him more than 1 year, especially with the uncertainty that comes with him.
Yeah. The uncertainty is definitely a big thing. So that's why the 2-year deal is hard to commit to. And the problem with NHL contracts, they're fully guaranteed, so you can't really back out of a contract, and you can't really front load a contract either. So maybe it's like a two-year, $7 million deal is what I've been seeing. It's 3.5. It's not, you can't front load a contract or $6 million to give $1 million the second year. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah.
So it's just a whole different game when it comes to contracts. And, he's not going to be a guy. Maybe he can be tradable on a second year deal. I don't know. It's all dependent on how he comes back and how he plays. But I think I do give some weight to the fact that the team, I know his play's been dropping off, and last year was kind of significant. The team that Chicago put in front on the ice last year was just a joke. I mean, they were definitely taking for Bedard. So I think that has a little bit of weight to what he was. But then he goes on the Rangers, and he never really I don't think he really fit the Ranger system.
He had like okay point production.
Yeah.
He was in 19 games, he had 12 points. I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't great in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think that's the story of the Rangers, their whole entire existence as a team. Like they'll sign all the superstars, they'll trade for all these guys, and they just end up never winning. So, I mean, he just kind of fell into that. So, I mean, I think it's worth a shot. Like you said, if it's a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal, it's hard to get me on board for that, but who knows? I don't think Okposo is going to be playing next year. I think this might be his last year in the NHL. I don't know if he'll be coming back. So I forgot. He signed for what, around like $2 million.
It was 2.5. They gave, I think, him and Gergensen's the same deal.
So I don't even know if Gergensen is going to be back. So that's $5 million off the books there.
Yeah,
but then you have some.
But I don't want to pay it to Kane. Like I don't think next year.
Exactly.
I don't think he's worth that much next year. Like,
I'm trying to I'm trying to convince myself like, all right, maybe I'm losing these numbers. But
to bear it for this year, maybe it's worth having him next year. Yeah. Like if it gets him here, but no, for me, it doesn't become worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and he's not like we said. He's not going to take over this team. He's going to be more supporting role. He's probably going to be on the third line. I don't expect him playing second line minutes. So, I mean, is he worth a shot if it's a 1-year deal? I definitely would say so at this point, just because I just don't feel like there's not too many answers. There's a lot of hoping guys can turn things around right now. And at this point, it's kind of looking bleak. And kind of like talking about, there's some guys coming back too, and one of them is going to be Comrie. So now we have like a bigger problem coming up right now, because now we're going to be going back to 3 goaltenders, and you can only have one, or you can only have 2 skaters up in the press box. What do you think is going to happen when the situation pops up?
Well, we just saw Devin Levi have a really tough game. Yep. And that was a really tough game for Devin Levi. At points, I was like trying to convince myself that, you know what, the team didn't play well around him, and they didn't. But that was a tough game for Devin Levi.
Yeah.
And maybe a stint in Rochester to build up some confidence. again, he's been inconsistent. He had that good game in Minnesota. So we know that the top end is there because in that game, he looked composed. He looked just on top of things. And it was clearly his play that won us that game.
Yeah.
So he has that top end, but he's shown inconsistency. And I think it was in I'm trying to think of what game it was. Not Toronto, because actually I think he played pretty well up until like the third period of that game. But like he, again, has been just a little bit shaky here and there throughout the year. And so like if he needs time in the AHL, I don't hate that. I said at the beginning of the year, I was like having a conversation with my brother. I'm like, I wouldn't be upset if I see Devin Levi start the year in Rochester. I know a lot of people would have been. I think now the sentiment will make people less angry, so I can say it, more broadly that like if Devin Levi has to spend time in the AHL, that's not the end of the world, guys. He's like it gives him time to like one, play every start or play every game, and two, just like build and develop his game. Players don't come into the NHL from college hockey, or goaltenders don't come into the NHL from college hockey like just ever, really. No. It happens occasionally, very occasionally, but it's not something that you should expect. They play time in the AHL. They play time in a pro sports league, like in a pro hockey league. That's generally the path that goaltenders take. And to just think that Devin Levi would be the exception to the rule, and then beyond that would like save our franchise and take us just soaring into the playoffs is unrealistic. Now, I don't think that like just like send them down just to make space, but if you're looking at what you have and you think that maybe Devin Levi would have just like a better opportunity in the AHL right now, I don't see it as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's how you free up the space to get Comrie back.
Yeah. The Sabres put a lot of marketing into Devin Levi this offseason. It was kind of insane. They basically were like, they all hung around the Star Wars things just because that's his thing. But it's just like, but they were marketing him so much that they were building up the hype around him, and they were putting a lot of pressure on a young goaltender who, he had an amazing run at the end of this year last year. But like we mentioned, he's a young guy. Ryan Miller spent, I think, two years in the AHL. It took him a while to develop down there. And then he became Ryan Miller. And there's nothing wrong with a goaltender going down there and getting his games and racking up his minutes and learning how to play, pro hockey down there. He hasn't like you mentioned, he hasn't had that experience in the pro hockey league. Every one of these goaltenders, I mean, Lundqvist played in the SHL. Like we mentioned, Ryan Miller. These guys take time to develop, and he's not going to develop in a 3 goaltender rotation between him, UPL, and Comrie. I mean, it's nice that UPL is kind of, stepping up a little bit now. He's playing better than he did last year. The hope is Comrie comes back and plays like he did before then. There really is no need for Levi to be up here, and he's not going to get the time that he's going to need to develop. So send him down to the AHL because not only does he need that, he needs that time to develop, but the team also needs to kind of start getting these guys that are performing pretty well down in Rochester, just to kind of reward them a little bit. Kulik has been playing out of his mind down there. Rosine, I mean, I don't think Rosine's going to stick up here, but he should get his chance up here too. It's great Rusak's coming up here, but like I said, we don't need another fourth liner. We have enough. We have Peyton Krebs, who's an underperforming fourth liner right now. You have Jost. Him and Jost are essentially almost the same player. You don't need any more of these guys up here. You need to start to get something going, and you need to start getting that third spot open so you can make room for these guys.
Right. I think like after this year, You see, like probably Kyle's done. I think we probably move on from Zemgus. If our fourth line is like Peyton Krebs, Tyson Yost, and Jordan Greenway, I think you're doing pretty well for yourself. And if you can bring up like you know, if you can bring up Kulik and Rosine next year, if they're there and Benson makes it, and you got Savoy and he genuinely makes it, like now you're assembling like pretty good lines. I think that in the immediate, we talked about putting Devin Levi in the minors, but if you need to free up another roster space, I got you. We send down Bryson.
Please.
I think Ryan Johnson has earned his roster spot. I think he's played well enough where he is one of our top 6 defenders. You don't need to worry about him not developing as like a 7th defender. Put him in the lineup because he is better than Clifton. He is better than Bryson. I think he has earned that spot. I was shocked that Clifton played over Yokiharu yesterday, honestly. I actually, like, as I was thinking about it, because I was watching the game, I was like, oh, he's a Boston, ex-Boston guy.
I hate that. If that's the reason why he played more, that really makes me mad. I don't like that idea at all, but keep on going.
I mean, like, players tend to overperform against their like former teams. So I get that, you looking at, like, you don't want to, as it stands, you don't want to be benching Johnson because then, like he could be developing the AHL still. So Yokiharu is the like next guy who you'd probably be like, all right, you're taking a breather, unless actually maybe Eric Johnson, because he's old. And, I am in full support of giving Eric Johnson and like Kyle Okposo more rest days, just to like rotate more people into the lineup that way. But like they didn't rest him, and they chose Yokiharu, which is fine. But if during the next game we see the same lineup and it doesn't come out that Yokiharu's like hurt or something's going on with Yokiharu, I'm going to be questioning that roster decision, because I think that our top 6 defensemen right now are Dahlin, Samuelson, Power, Yokiharu, and Johnson. Okay. And then if Connor Clifton's your 7th and Jacob Bryson is in the AHL, I think that you're doing pretty well, honestly. That's a it's on paper, like not too shabby. I would like to see Owen Power perform better than he has been.
Mm-hmm.
I think Yokiharu's kind of stabilized his game nicely. I don't think he looks great on any given night, but I think he like is pretty steady. Eric Johnson has been doing what you need him to do, and Ryan Johnson has come up and played better than you'd expect him to. So really, like on that list, it's Owen Power's kind of the glaring hole on that second pair there. But again, one of those things where I'm not worried about it in the long term, but in the short term, you would love to see him pick up his game because it has not looked great recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I would free up a roster spot by sending Bryson down.
Oh, of course. I mean, Bryson, I don't know why he's still on this team. It's a contract thing again. Maybe I think he does have to clear waivers since this is
but who cares?
No, I'm saying that, but I think that
who's going to pick him
up? But the problem is, I think Kevin Adams cares about this stuff. That's the problem. I think they still believe in this guy. I'm sitting there, I'm like, no one believes in this guy anymore. He's too small to be a defenseman in the NHL.
Actually, like this is maybe part of it. So Kevin Adams is a huge, like, he talks about the culture. We're building a culture, right? And it's like, it's true. You can see it. A guy like Rasmus Dahlin looks happier to be on the ice than like 3 years ago. A guy like Jeff Skinner, night and day between when he was like under Ralph Kruger, right? So like the culture is real. It's changing. Victor Olofsson and Jacob Bryson are always in those like when people are talking about like their favorite people on the team, it's like Victor Olofsson and Jacob Bryson's name are always getting thrown around. I wonder if they're just being kept around as like the 13th and 7th defenseman just to be there, like just for morale, some cheerleading type stuff.
Not.
If that is the case, like if you're actually taking up roster spots just for that, I'd be like pretty annoyed. But with all the verbiage, with the emphasis on the culture, Ultimately, your 13th spot isn't doing much. Your 7th defenseman, they don't do much. And we even see, right? Like, we have someone get hurt, and instead of playing Bryson for multiple games, we called up Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? The solution wasn't keep playing Bryson. It was, all right, it's time for Johnson to come up so that Bryson doesn't have to play. So if that's your strategy, whatever, keeping them around is whatever. But I would like to see you use those spots like more effectively. I want to see, like you said, Yuri Kulik. I want to see Isaac Rosen. Yuri Kulik could solve that power play spot and more effectively than Olofsson does. Yuri Kulik has 9 goals in 12 games right now. That's a lot. That's a pretty good pace.
Yeah.
I would take that on our NHL team. But like that's someone you bring up, and maybe he's a personnel solution so that we don't have to bring in Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if it's a culture thing, the culture is going to get you fired. I mean, at this point, I don't care about guys like Bryson and Olofsson. If this is what's holding you back from making moves with these guys, then you should go kick rocks. Honestly, you're too afraid to make moves that, when push comes to shove, when this team is actually going to be competing for a Stanley Cup, are you going to make those moves, or are you going to still hold on to these guys that, are totally useless? And that's what I kind of worry about, is starting to show signs that you're not willing to make these type of moves. But who knows? I guess that's something that we'll see. But if Bryson goes down, I'll be elated, just because, Johnson, I know, and it's funny because we're talking about college guys don't pop up and start playing in the NHL.
But he's
Johnson
not a goaltender.
He also played 4 years in college too.
Yeah.
So he's been in the college hockey is completely different, where he's playing against adults, but still he's played so well that he deserves to be on this team. He doesn't need to go down to the AHL. He should be. I mean, the one thing that Kevin Adams, he whiffed on the second pair defenseman at this point, because Yoki Haru should be playing on the third line. Johnson maybe can develop into a second line defenseman.
Right.
Maybe he's down on the third, but the guy he whiffed on Clifton. Clifton, I'm going to say right now, he's just the bust, man. He just doesn't fit in the system.
I'm right there with you in that Clifton was a whiff. I'm not sure, like, if you go out and you get a bona fide second defenseman, I'm not sure, like, one, who even that would be, and two, like, if the contract would make sense. Because people were talking about Brett Pesce, and, like, I don't know, from everything I heard, it just seemed like it was a little too rich for my blood, especially given that, like, you got some players who will probably eventually, between Yoki Haru, Ryan Johnson, and, the Russian who we have in the AHL now, who was playing in the K last year. Like, he's doing pretty well for himself as well. Like, one of them is surely going to end up good enough to be like a second pair guy. So I'm not, like, necessarily looking to sign 5 years for a second pair guy.
Yeah.
Like, who's maybe older and is going to maybe cost you a bit more because you're bringing them into the organization. Like, I'm not sure how that affects our cap, right? So I'm not necessarily sure that I, like, am super huge on the, we whiffed there, but I can definitively say Connor Clifton was a whiff of a contract.
Yeah.
It's too much, too long. He didn't really do too much before earned, or before the contract was given to him to really earn it. It was an interesting experiment because he did show flashes of looking good when Boston's top pair defensemen were injured and he was playing on that first pair. Like, he looked good, but as it turns out, probably was just the other defenseman covering for his deficiencies, because this guy, I also maybe a systems thing, because Boston's whole defensive scheme is definitely better than ours.
Yeah.
But this is not, I'm not too high on the whole Clifton signing as of right now.
Yeah.
And I think that it will continue to be for 3 years or 2 or 3. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
Yeah, he'll probably just end up being the seventh pair defenseman at some point. And then, it's depending on who's going to jump up to be on the second pair D, just because I think it's just glaring right now because the way that Power's been playing. I mean, this has just been a roller coaster with this guy. The thing is, I think his demeanor on the ice is showing that how much is the thing that worries about me is when is it going to click with this guy that you need to change up your game a little bit more? It just doesn't seem like he's been like, you don't see the evolution of it. He's just going with the ebbs and flows. So when is this? I'm like we said, we're not worried about the future. We're just worried about the present.
Yep.
But it's also, when is this going to click with this kid? And right now,
Right.
I don't see any signs of clicking anytime soon. So, and that comes down to coaching too. When is there going to be a coach that's going to sit him down and be like, "What are you doing out there?" And a lot of the coaching staff, Granado's been great, but how much experience these guys had? I mean, Matt Ellis came from the AHL. I mean, I don't even know who the other guys are. There hasn't been much experience. So that's part of the reason where I'm sitting there. I'm like, what? And I talked about this on our first show too. Is Granado going to be the guy that's going to, or is this coaching staff in general going to be the staff that's going to help take the Sabres over the edge?
Right.
And I guess we're going to see that in the next month, because I'll give him the benefit of the doubt right now, but in a month I probably won't be giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to see, like, now that we know that stuff isn't working, if we don't see changes, I think that reflects on the coaching, right? That's when we can start looking at, is this a coaching thing? Yeah. And I'm just gonna address the chat a little bit. So Timmy, try not to schedule your show at the same time as Jake's. Sorry, that was my fault. I was at the game last night, so we had to push it back a day. So, and do we get Kane? We addressed that. I'm not personally a big fan of the Kane contract unless we can get it for 1 year, but all of the
a lot of question marks.
Rumors seem to be like that it might be more than 1 year, and they don't look like they're having fun. There's too much dead weight on this team. By the way, MCK, I don't think I've seen you in here before, so welcome to the show. Yeah, they don't look like they're having too much fun out there. It's not fun to lose. So, yeah, the getting shut out and then getting just absolutely destroyed by Boston on the back-to-back games is not how you want to do it. But,
yeah. And they're just not playing inspired hockey. I mean, you saw the way that they can play when they're inspired, when they played against the Maple Leafs. But they got to keep this going.
Yeah.
And they're not doing that. And it's just, I mean, you can relate it to the Buffalo Bills. Their offense isn't playing inspired. The Sabres aren't playing inspired. Like, what do you need to do to get this team going? Because it's been far too long. You're losing they're young, they're still learning type of thing. At some point, it has to click. Right. And if it's not clicking, I'm all for a major change happening. Yep. But, I mean, what that major change is going to be, it's most likely going to be the coaching staff. And because, like we said, this team has way too much talent, at least at the top end, to be where they are right now. And it's just, I don't know, something isn't working. I'm not a coach. I would say I don't know how to approach different schemes. Maybe someone can teach me how to do this stuff, but I'm just going to be the guy that's going to commentate and see what I view. And right now, nothing is working, like you and I said. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered with this team. I'm sure we'll be seeing that in the next 3 games.
Yeah. So, I mean, next week we've got 2 games before our next show. And those games are the Jets and the Blackhawks, both away games. What would you like to see the team start doing during those games?
It's so hard. I mean,
there's so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, I could say multiple things. I didn't see I don't know if they practiced today. I didn't see what the lines were. Who's going to step up as their first line center? I think it might be Middlestat, who's going to be centering Skinner. I don't know who else is going to be centering. This is the issue right now. I mean, this team is going to have to pick up for the absence of Thompson. That's what I need to see within these games.
Yeah.
You have to show that we're missing our best player, but we can play at a high level. We can generate a high level team. You need to see guys like Dylan Cousins stepping up. This team has to play inspired. That's what I'm going to try to say. This team has to play inspired. I mean, you're going to be playing the Winnipeg Jets, who you're playing Connor Hellebuck, who's a pretty good goaltender. I don't know what's the Jets' record right now.
I don't know off the top of my head, but if you give me a second, I can definitely find it.
Yeah. So I mean,
Connor Hellebuck is a elite goaltender, though.
Yeah. So you're going to be playing an elite goaltender. I don't know how the team is overall. I mean, it sounded like at the beginning of the season, like they was trying to do just a wholesale getting rid of everybody, but now they're signing guys to a contract. So,
no, the Jets are 8-5-2. So like pretty good. Yeah, they're looking all right. It's fine though, because then we face the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Also, 8-5-2 in the Central is different than 8-5-2 in the East.
And we get our first look at Connor Bedard as a team.
Yeah, we'll get to see Connor. That's fun.
So this is where your defensive scheme is going to have to shut him down, which is going to be tough to do. But yeah, I mean, this team has to step up at this point. You lost 2 games in a row. The 2 games that you played were so uninspired. You didn't look good. You were an offensive team last year. There's no offense this year. You're saying you're trying to work on your defense, but your defense just let up 5 goals the past 2 games. So what are we doing here? So you have to play inspired. You have to play fast. You have to start scoring goals. How are you going to do that? I don't know. That's where the coaching staff is at. Who's going to light the fire under their asses? I don't know. Does Zach Benson come in? But the other question is Zach Benson going to be staying on this team for the rest of the season? I don't know at this point. There's a lot of questions that have to be answered, and I don't have the answers. I can't generate the answers for this team, but the team just has to light a fire on their ass right now. They have to play like the Florida Panthers played last year towards the end of the season. You got to play like you're competing for the last wild card spot. I don't know. What are you looking for these next 2 games?
So for the next 2 games, I would just like to see some of the players that we've not seen play up to their level. Because you already talked about the other stuff, so I'll talk about something else. I'd like to see some of the players kind of just correct ship right now. Like we got some Owen Power needs to be more physical with Owen Powder. Timmy, you played more physical when you played. Yeah. So there's some Owen Power in there. I want to see Alex Tuch again. I've been critical of him this year. He's supposed to be back on
Friday.
He's supposed to be back on Friday. I want to see Zach Benson step into the lineup and look good. I want to see Dylan Cousins play like we know Dylan Cousins can play. And there's a call in chat to play hard and dirty, play playoff hockey. Yeah, sure. Add that to the lineup. Add some physicality. I want to see some players really get into a groove. Can we see that from Peyton Krebs? It feels like he's kind of been in a lull recently, and he's kind of been a little bit of a spark plug for us last year, and maybe not so much this year. He just kind of has faded into the background this year, and I'd like to see more from him as well. So I just want to see individuals pick it up. We're getting what we need from some of the higher end guys. We're getting what we need from Skinner. We're getting what we need from JJ. We're getting what we need from Middlestat. And yeah, the goaltending hasn't looked bad, honestly. There's been some shaky games, but I think on aggregate, our goaltending this year has looked better than it did last year. So that's looking better. I need the individuals to start playing better. And on a similar note, I kind of hadn't even thought about it because this has mostly just been ranting about the bad parts of this, but we never did 3 stars. If you want to, do you think that you can manage to pull 3 players from this week that you thought looked good? Because that had slipped my mind with all of the negativity. But let's give out some positive stuff before we.
Well, we talked about Brian Johnson, right? So I'd give him a star.
Rightio, there we are.
Oh man, we're really pulling teeth right now. Well, Peterka is still kind of continuing his point streak. Well, no, his point streak ended with the Penguins. I mean, he's still kind of hot. I mean, he got a point last night with Olofsson's garbage goal. Shoot, do I just throw Middlestat again out there? I mean, he did have that one. Casey Middlestud, as I'm calling him now. I mean, he did have that one possession where he kept the puck pretty well. So I guess I'll just go with those three. I don't. There's no one really else I can point to.
Yeah, I'll give you Ryan Johnson. I'll give you JJ Peterka. And I thought, even with the Pittsburgh game, I'll give you UPL. He looked pretty sharp,
too. Yeah.
And he came into relief in the last game and did not let a goal in during his time. And he had like 18 minutes, I think, maybe less, but he looked pretty good. I don't really have a complaint with the way that went. Also, as a like personnel thing that you may have forgot because it was only 4 minutes of your life. this in this past week, we saw Matt Savoy get his NHL debut. Again, that kind of slips our mind because he got 4 minutes of ice time before being shipped back to the WHL, so he kind of got done dirty. So as it turns out, he's not our personnel answer for going forward that we were looking for, but he got on the ice. So
he's definitely a guy that needs AHL time.
Yeah, you see him on the ice and you're like, he needs to figure out, like he was just kind of passing it randomly to the middle of the ice, more so than Dylan Cousins. And it was like, he needs seasoning. I think he got done dirty. The only 4 minutes was kind of harsh, but yeah.
Maybe this is like inspires him now just to see Benson's been hanging on a little bit longer up here. Do you think Benson plays out the year here?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think that if he continues, I don't think he's lost the right to stay here. He cooled off a little bit, and we were talking about maybe the kind of level of play is catching up to him. But if it were a rotation of him and Kyle Okposo getting rest days, I think he could probably last out the grind of a full NHL season like that. And honestly, I think he's better than some of the players that are currently playing in the roster. The only issue is that physicality level. He doesn't, after it was 6 games, it was clear that he wasn't going to be able to hold up on the level of a full NHL season. So,
yeah. And that's kind of where I say you got to start shipping guys off. I mean, if you want this guy rotating on the team, you got to ship off like an Olofsson type of thing. I mean, you just have to make room for him if you want him to develop an NHL and have him underneath your development program. Because if you don't, he's going down to the WHL, and how much more is he learning in the WHL? The only problem, like I said, with Savoy and him, they dominated the WHL. So how much development is going to happen down there for these guys? Probably not a lot. So that means you'd have to wait for Savoy next year to go to the AHL. And then Benson, you're going to have to wait 2 years. So I don't know. It's like I said, I think he'll probably stay in the NHL, but it's going to be contingent on you have to start shipping guys out. See you later, goodbye. Even if that means sending, even I don't know how. If Olson's contract's a 2-way contract, I think you just have to cut him. I don't think he can go down the AHL. So see you later, bud.
Yeah. Well, there's at least some good news. When you look at our record, it's the same as it was this time last year. So it doesn't mean we're totally out of the rush. It's been a tough week, but we are not by any means out of the playoff picture. There's still a long season ahead of us. And as we learned last year, you can rebound from slumps. You can rebound from slow starts. So that's some positivity to kind of end off with. But thank you everyone for coming to our therapy session where we just vent at you. We're hoping for a little bit of a better week upcoming. The Nickel City Mafia is working with the Punt Foundation to help a kid with cancer, just set up a charitable foundation or a charity drive for him. And there's going to be more information about that, I think, next week's stream. And so we'll get that information to you, but that's something to look forward to. And other than that, thanks for coming out. We will see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.